This ridiculous survey by Reuters is a farce, in my opinion. But really, what does matter is what happens next. How many people will buy Teslas now in the United States? We're going to find out within a few months' time. But it's feature pieces like this with 1,600 selectively handpicked respondents from Reuters that make mainstream media look like the Muppets that they truly are. Guys, I just did cancel my Tesla Model Y order, not for the reasons you might think, just because another car is a better value for money. But I'm not out there to tell you that Tesla is a bad company. Yeah, I understand why people feel emotionally about a certain person, and they're within their rights to do that, absolutely. But there is now massive misinformation being spread in the United States by mainstream media organizations, and it is misleading. It's deceptive. It's dishonest. It's simply flat out lying. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. And you know what? There is an article that's been going around today and probably yesterday when it came out that says this. Reuters says 2/3 of Americans say they would not drive a Tesla, and most of them cite Elon Musk as the reason why. Now, I'm not going to argue with their citing Elon Musk as the reason why, but the survey itself, the poll itself, is completely bogus. It is a scam. And honestly, I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to see these kind of claims being made by people with credibility, or people who pretend they have credibility, or at least you think they had credibility. And I'm going to explain why it is. If you actually look at the survey itself, you look at who was polled, you start to realize that Americans might think this way. Americans, in fact, could, this poll could be correct. But unfortunately, we don't know. We don't know because the way that they carried it out, the people they actually asked were very targeted. They targeted people who don't like electric cars. They targeted people who don't own Teslas, have never owned Teslas, and probably never planned on buying a Tesla. So it's full of shit. Now, editors, don't edit that out. Keep that in because, guys, normally my editors, I tell them, edit out if I swear, but this time, don't edit out. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of these kind of the mainstream media. Now, don't get me wrong. This could be legit. It could have been legitimate if they'd actually done this properly and not tried to scam the results. And I'm sure they could have. It wouldn't have been that difficult. We're talking about Reuters here. We're talking about people with millions of viewers and followers, but they didn't want to do that because they wanted to make sure they got the answer that they actually set out to go with. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, right now, you're popular if you bash Tesla. If you bash Elon Musk, probably even more popular. But in particular, Tesla. If you bash Tesla, people will read it. You'll become more popular and you'll get more clicks and you'll make more money from advertising. So you set out with an agenda. You set out with a preconceived idea. You then set up the survey in order to be able to hit and basically get your preconceived idea to correlate with the survey results. So what do I mean by this? Well, okay, the survey says 67% of Americans would never buy a Tesla now, and they're full on against Tesla, rah, rah, rah. Now, here's the problem, right? Almost no one has actually looked at this poll, and the poll says, all right, let's have a look here, guys. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of the following people? Elon Musk, very favorable. 21% said they're very favorable of Elon Musk. Now, if 21% of these people are very favorable of Elon Musk, why do only 3% of this entire list actually own an electric car, own a Tesla? 3% of them. They've basically gone and asked Americans who almost all of them don't have an EV. Probably almost all of them never plan to own EV. Are they going to buy a Tesla? And they would have told you the same thing 2 years ago. No, I'm not going to buy one because I'm not into EVs. I'm not into Tesla. The fact that only 3% of these people owned an electric car shows you that they clearly set this up, right? Anyhow, in general, apparently 40% of the respondents to this survey were favorable about Elon Musk. Don't know said 6%. So 46% are either don't know, don't care, or favorable. He's a great guy. I love Elon Musk. And unfavorable was somewhat unfavorable, somewhat. So don't really care, but somewhat. 10%, very unfavorable, 45%, and unfavorable, that means in total, including somewhat unfavorable and very unfavorable, a total of 55%. So some of these people loved Elon, some of them hated him. But the truth is, of all these people who loved him and hated him, almost none of them had ever bought a Tesla, right? It's not like this is actually a group of people that is representative of the average person in, say, for example, California. And here's the way you can tell that these people aren't actually electric car fans. If you don't believe me yet, well, have a look at this. All right. Question 3. Do you favor or oppose the idea of having a government agency tasked with cutting federal spending? 50% of them said that they favor it. 24% said not sure. Only 27% said they oppose it. Now, if you look at Democrat voters, almost all of them seem to be disagreeing with the idea of Doge. I'm not coming in with a position on this. I'm not going to get involved in that. But let's be fair. How many Democrats do you know that currently support Doge? How many EV fans do you think support Doge? The Department of Cutting Spending in America, the Department of Elon Musk and Trump cutting spending. No one does. None of them do. Very, very few. If 50% of these survey respondents favor Doge and 24% couldn't care less, then who are they asking? Who are the people they're asking about this survey? They're clearly people in the heartland of Republican areas, right? They're clearly red. And most of these red guys, they've never owned an EV, as you can see from the survey results further down. Do you approve or disapprove of the way the Department of Government is led by... Now, getting off the track for a little bit, guys, here, this is a really baffling thing. Apparently, right, 50% of these people agree with Doge, but 44% of them say that Doge is making things worse. So the survey numbers are all over the place here. It seems like basically this survey, people are saying, oh yeah, Doge is great. And then some of these people who say Doge is great are saying Doge is making everything worse. So are they actually going to like mental institutions and actually surveying people at mental institutions where they ask them a question? They say, do you like the color red? Yeah, I love the color red. Do you think the color red is killing people? Yeah, the color red's killing people. What? Hang on a minute. Are you crazy? Yeah. Anyway. Now, one interesting part was next. It said, which of the following comes closest to your view of Elon Musk? Is he mostly trying to help the country? 36%. He is mostly trying to help himself, 52%, and 12% not sure. So what about ownership? Well, the question was, have you ever owned or leased a Tesla vehicle? Ever? Ever in your life, have you ever owned a Tesla? 2%. 2%, right? Basically, 98% of the respondents don't own a Tesla. 98% don't own a Tesla. Would you consider owning or leasing a Tesla in the future? 18% said yes, 67% said no, 13% said not sure, and not asked, currently own, lease 2%. So that means 33% of these people would consider owning a Tesla in the future. That's a pretty good number when you consider that only 2% of them actually own one now. Only 2% of these people own a Tesla, but 33% of them say that they would consider buying a Tesla. So has sentiment changed towards Tesla? Well, I'm going to guess it has in the United States. But this survey is shockingly bad. And clearly they've targeted people who they knew were going to say they probably won't buy a Tesla because I don't own an EV. 98% of us, we don't own EVs. We have never owned an EV before. Probably aren't that into them. We're probably in Texas or, I don't know, some state where most people don't have EVs yet. They haven't caught on in that state. So my point is to say this. I reckon if this survey was done properly, it would have confirmed the fact that there is a lot of negative sentiment in the US about Tesla right now. There is. How big is it? I don't know. No idea. But because this survey was just a full-on setup, it looks ridiculous. And it's it's created this narrative that's clearly, well, for these particular survey respondents, false. None of these people are into electric cars. But surprisingly, only 2% of them have an EV, and 33% are saying, well, we'll consider a Tesla. That's actually a good response for Tesla. It doesn't, in fact, say what Reuters says that it says in any way whatsoever. Now, as for the Elon Musk stuff, well, that's an entirely different story. Let me know your thoughts.